It is 11 o'clock at night, and a man is staring at an email he wrote in anger. Every word of it is true. Every word of it is fair. His thumb is hovering over the send button, and some quiet thing in his chest is asking him to wait until morning. Across town, a woman sits in front of a spreadsheet. There is a number on row 40 that is wrong, and she is the only person alive who knows it. Fixing it means admitting the mistake is hers. Staying quiet means the mistake becomes a secret, and secrets in a company compound like interest. In a college apartment, a 19-year-old is holding her phone. The group chat wants an answer. Everyone is going. The message on the screen says, "You coming or not?" She has a feeling about tonight that she cannot put into words, and the feeling is losing. And in a glass office tower, a man stands outside a conference room door. He built this company. He also built, without meaning to, a room where nobody argues with him anymore. In about a minute, every person at that table will tell him exactly what he wants to hear. And somewhere under his ribs, he knows it. 4 people, 4 seconds. And here is the thing about a human life. It almost never collapses in a day. It turns, degree by degree, in small unwatched moments exactly like these. And by the time the turn is visible, it is a decade old. 3,000 years ago, a man sat down to write about those 4 seconds. He had a palace with 200 shields of hammered gold hanging on the walls. Silver, the record says, was as common as gravel in his city. Kings crossed deserts just to ask him questions. And the answers he wrote down were short, blunt, and almost embarrassingly practical. What your mouth does. What your hands do when nobody is clapping. Which road you take at dusk. What power does to the person holding it. His name was Solomon, and by the testimony of his own era, he was the wisest man alive. Hold on to his face, because I am going to make you a promise about him. By the end of this file, that man will become the single greatest piece of evidence for everything he wrote. And it will happen in the worst way you can imagine. The book he left behind is called Proverbs, and I want to be straight with you about what it is. It is a collection, gathered over centuries, carrying more than one voice. Most of it traces back to Solomon. Some of it comes from a mysterious outsider named Agur. The final chapter belongs to a king named Lemuel, writing down what his mother taught him. We will meet all 3 of them, right at the moments their voices matter most. Inside that collection are 31 teachings we are going to walk through tonight. And I mean walk, because this is a road, and it runs in one direction. It starts at your mouth. It moves down into your hands and your work. It arrives at the forks where a life quietly picks its future, and it ends at the chair of power, where everything you practiced in private finally goes public. Ready or not, speak, work, choose, lead. 4 doors, 1 hallway. The first door is already open. It is the small wet muscle behind your teeth, and according to this book, it is holding a sword. Here is a number worth sitting with. The average American speaks somewhere around 16,000 words a day. Run that across an adult lifetime, and you pass 400 million words. 400 million. Almost all of them cost nothing to say, and almost none of them can ever be taken back. Proverbs looks at that flood and makes a claim that sounds, at first, like an exaggeration. Chapter 18. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Death and life. The book reaches for the 2 biggest words in the human vocabulary, sets them both inside your mouth, and leaves them there. If that sounds dramatic, run a simple test. Think of one sentence an adult said to you when you were 8 years old. You have one. Everybody has one. For some of you it was a blessing. You're smart. I'm proud of you. You can do this. For some of you it was a blade. And you can still quote it. Word for word. Tone for tone. 40 years later, that adult probably forgot the sentence by dinner. You built part of a life on it. That is the first of our 31. And it is the foundation under the other 30. A word is an action. It goes out. It lands. And it keeps working long after the speaker has left the room. The book's picture is agricultural. The tongue plants things. And whoever plants will eat the harvest. Every parent, every boss, every coach, every friend is farming with their mouth. All day. Every day. The only question is what is coming up out of the ground, which leads straight to the second teaching. And this one cuts against everything our culture rewards. Proverbs chapter 10 says that where words are many, sin is close behind, and the person who holds their tongue is wise. Then chapter 17 pushes it further, and you can almost hear the writer smiling. Even a fool who keeps silent is counted wise. Keep his mouth shut, and people will assume he understands. That is a real sentence in the Bible, and it is funnier than we usually let it be. Silence is so powerful, it can dress a fool up as a sage. Now flip it around and feel the warning. If silence can disguise a fool, talk can expose one, and the more talk, the more exposure. Wisdom in this book is measured less by what a person says and more by what they manage to leave unsaid. The wise carry an inventory of unspoken sentences, true things, clever things, cutting things that they picked up, weighed carefully, and put back on the shelf. Our man with the email knows about that shelf. His message is true. That was never the question. Proverbs would ask him a different one. Is it necessary? And is it aimed at repair or at victory? Keep him in your mind. We are coming back for him. Now walk with me into any office kitchen in America, because the third teaching lives there. 2 co-workers, coffee in hand, and one of them lowers their voice. Did you hear about Rachel? What follows is soft, plausible, maybe partly true, and completely delicious. The book has a verse that reads like it was written by someone standing next to that refrigerator. Chapter 26. Without wood, a fire goes out. Without a gossip, a quarrel dies down. Look at the mechanics of that sentence, because it really is mechanics. It is a physics lesson. A rumor has no legs of its own. It is a fire, and fire has one need: fuel, and the fuel is you. The moment the story reaches your ears, you become the next stick of wood, and you have exactly 2 options. Pass it along, and the fire crosses the room on your voice. Absorb it, let it die in your chest, and something remarkable happens. Nothing. The flame reaches the one person who refuses to burn, and it goes out. The book never asks you to police anyone else's mouth. It hands you responsibility for one link in the chain, yours, and quietly points out that every dead rumor in history died the same way, in the hands of somebody who declined to be firewood. The 4th teaching is about the words we fire when we are hit. Proverbs chapter 12 says, "Reckless words pierce like a sword, but the tongue of the wise brings healing." Chapter 15 gives the tactical version. A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Let me show you both halves, with 1 kitchen and 1 marriage. A husband comes home late for the 3rd time this week. His wife says, "Must be nice, having somewhere better to be." Version 1. He fires back, "Maybe, if this house felt less like a courtroom, I would come home sooner." Sword meets sword. Within 90 seconds, they are relitigating things from 2019, and tonight goes into the permanent record. Another log on a fire that is now years old. Now run it back. Same kitchen. Same opening line. Version 2. He stops, takes the hit, and says, "You're right. I've been gone too much. And you deserved better than a text." Watch what her shoulders do. The fight was fully loaded, and it just lost its ammunition. Same two people. Same offense. Same anger. One sentence chose the exit. The book's claim is that this power sits in your mouth every waking hour. A soft answer is a decision, available even to the angry, even to the wronged, even at 11 at night with a thumb over a send button. So there is your first set. 4 teachings, and every one of them lives in an organ that weighs about 2 ounces. Words plant harvests. Restraint outranks brilliance. Fires die where gossip stops, and a soft answer can disarm a war. But the book is about to raise the stakes, because talking was only ever half of the mouth's job. The harder half is what happens when words come at you. Criticism, correction, the sentence you did not want to hear, from the person you did not want to hear it from. Proverbs says your reaction in that exact moment is the clearest X-ray of your soul that exists, and most of us fail it in under 4 seconds. She says, "I feel like lately you don't really listen when I do listen. You want to talk about listening. I sat through your entire story about your sister's kitchen remodel last night. That's not what I repeated it back to you, word for word. Countertops. The contractor who never showed up. The backsplash. You want the backsplash details. Because I have them. And right there, the conversation dies. You can hear the exact moment it happens. She was 14 words into a sentence about their marriage, and he answered a question she never asked, because he heard the opening chords of criticism and fired before the target was even visible. He will win this exchange on points. He will lose the evening, and a small piece of the decade. Proverbs has a diagnosis for that moment, and it is not polite. Chapter 18. To answer before listening. That is folly and shame. That is teaching number 5. And notice how specific it is. The book does not condemn answering. It condemns the sequence. Answer first. Listen, never. And the reason it reaches for a word as hot as shame is that answering early was never really about the other person's sentence. It is about defending yourself from a sentence you predicted, which means you are no longer in a conversation. You are in a rehearsal, and the other person keeps interrupting it. We have built an entire civilization on this reflex now. Watch how people share articles online. Researchers keep finding that most links get shared by people who never opened them. Headline in, opinion out. 4 seconds flat. We argue with titles. We review books by their covers, sometimes literally. The comment section under any news story is a monument to Chapter 18. Thousands of people answering before hearing. At scale. On the record. Forever. The technology is brand new. The folly is 3,000 years old. And the book called it shame, back when the loudest platform on earth was a city gate. Teaching number 6 is the one I would tattoo somewhere visible if this book allowed such things. Because it is the fastest character test I know of. And it takes 1 sentence to run. Proverbs chapter 9. Do not correct a mocker, or he will hate you. Correct a wise person, and he will love you. Read that again slowly. Because the book just handed you a sorting machine. 2 people receive the exact same piece of criticism. Fairly given. Accurately aimed. One of them makes you an enemy for it. The other one thanks you. Same words. Opposite harvests. And the difference was never in the criticism. It was in the soil it landed on. Which means the clearest measure of wisdom in this entire book has nothing to do with vocabulary, education, or talent. It is what a person does in the 10 seconds after being told they are wrong. The fool hears an attack and returns fire. The wise hear free intelligence, information about a blind spot, delivered at someone else's social expense, and they treat it like what it is, a gift with awkward wrapping. Run the test on yourself. Right now, quietly, think of the last time somebody corrected you. Your spouse, your manager, a friend brave enough to risk it. Where did your mind go in those first seconds? Did it go to the content? Is this true? Or did it go to the courtroom, building a defense, gathering counter-charges, questioning their right to say it? You already know your answer. That answer, says Proverbs, is your wisdom score. And no credential on your resume can overrule it. And there is a quieter cost hiding underneath. People around you are watching how you take correction. And they are adjusting. Every eye roll, every counterattack, every wounded silence teaches them the price of honesty with you. Raise the price high enough, and honest people stop paying it. They do not announce the change. They just start telling you what you want to hear. And the room goes soft. And years later, you will stand outside a conference room door, like our man from the opening, wondering when everyone stopped arguing with you. That door gets built one bad reaction at a time. Teaching number 7 brings back an old friend. The email is still open. The thumb is still hovering. It is still 11 at night. Here is what Proverbs chapter 16 says to that man, and to every one of us standing in his slippers. Better a patient person than a warrior, one who controls their temper than one who takes a city. Feel the size of that comparison. Because the writer chose the biggest measuring stick his world had. Taking a walled city was the supreme achievement of ancient life. Siege works, lauders, months of blood, the thing kings carved into monuments. And the book looks at all that, then looks at a man alone in a dark kitchen declining to send an email, and says the man in the kitchen did the harder thing. That sounds absurd until you consider who the enemy is. The warrior fights somebody else. The patient man is fighting his own nervous system. Adrenaline arguing its case. Righteousness pounding the table. Every cell in his body voting yes. There is no crowd, no trumpet, no monument. Nobody will ever know the war happened, which is exactly why the book ranks it above the city. Any king can raise an army against Damascus, raising one against yourself, at 11 at night, with truth on your side. That is the rarer campaign. Notice something about these 7 teachings so far. Every single one has been anti-impulse. Wait before speaking. Hold the clever line. Starve the rumor. Soften the answer. Listen to the end. Welcome the correction. Sit on the anger until morning. 7 teachings in. And Proverbs has not yet asked you to do anything. It has only asked you to survive 4 seconds without doing something. Whether our man's thumb comes down tonight, I am not telling you yet. He has to wait. And so do you. Because waiting is rather the point. The book is done with the mouth for now. It is about to walk outside, kneel down in the dirt, and introduce you to the hardest working creature in the ancient world. She has no boss. She has no paycheck. And a king in a golden palace is about to call her his professor. Get low. Ground level. Eye level with the dirt. On a hillside in ancient Israel, where the summer heat has baked the soil into cracked tile, something is moving across that tile. A single ant, carrying a grain of wheat that outweighs her several times over. And she is not wandering. She is running a route. Nest to field. Field to nest. Thousands of trips. While the sun hammers down and the land holds its breath for a winter that is months away, and absolutely certain. Now pull the camera back, because someone is watching her. A man is crouched on that hillside, robes in the dust, studying an insect. And the robes are royal. This is the richest man of his age, a king whose stables held thousands of horses, kneeling in the dirt over an ant, and then going home to write her into scripture. Proverbs, chapter 6. Go to the ant, you sluggard. Consider her ways and be wise. She has no commander, no overseer, no ruler. Yet she stores her provisions in summer and gathers her food at harvest. That is teaching number 8. And the hinge of it is those 3 missing job titles. No commander, no overseer, no ruler. The most productive creature on the hillside has 0 supervision. Nobody assigns her quota. Nobody checks her timesheet. Nothing outside her makes her work. And she works anyway, because her clock is reality itself. Summer is when grain exists. Winter is when it does not. She sinks her effort to that truth and to nothing else. Now measure yourself against her. Honestly, how much of your effort exists because someone might check? The report done because a boss will read it. The hustle that switches on when the manager walks the floor. Strip every watcher out of your week. Every deadline. Every review. Every set of eyes. And whatever effort survives. That is yours. That remainder is what Proverbs calls diligence. Work calibrated to what is real rather than to who is watching. Preparation running ahead of requirement. The ant is storing food for a winter nobody has announced. That is the entire skill. Doing the necessary thing before anything forces you. So that when the season turns, and it always turns, the turn finds you already stocked. Teaching number 9 is the same coin, flipped, and the book delivers it as an eyewitness report. This might be my favorite passage in Proverbs, because the writer stops teaching for a moment and simply tells you about a walk he took. Chapter 24. I went past the field of a sluggard, past the vineyard of someone who has no sense. Thorns had come up everywhere. The ground was covered with weeds, and the stone wall was in ruins. I applied my heart to what I observed and learned a lesson from what I saw. A drive-by. 3,000 years ago, a man walked past a neighbor's collapsing property, slowed down, took mental photographs, and drew a conclusion. Here is the conclusion. The famous cadence. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come on you like a thief. Underline the word little, because it appears 3 times, and it is the entire teaching. Nobody in that vineyard made a big decision. There was no dramatic morning where the owner stood up and announced, "I kid. Let the walls fall." There was only a series of littles. Skip the weeding once. Weeds are slow. Leave the fallen stone. 1 stone is nothing. Sleep in. A morning is small. Every individual choice was genuinely minor, which is exactly what made the pattern invisible. Ruin never sent an invoice. It compounded quietly, like interest on a forgotten debt. And then one day a passerby is photographing your thorns. It works the same way at a desk. The 15 minutes of scrolling before starting. The email flagged for later. Every day. For a year. The skill you have meant to learn since 2 jobs ago. The follow-up call pushed to Friday. Then to next Friday. None of it is a collapse. All of it is a direction. And the thief the book mentions is only partly about money. The deeper theft is position. Arriving at the moment of opportunity with empty storerooms. The vineyard never failed in a storm. It failed in increments. On nice days. A little at a time. Which sets up teaching number 10. Because Proverbs now makes a promise to the person who runs their life like the ant. And the promise comes with an address. Chapter 22. Do you see someone skilled in their work? They will serve before kings. They will not serve before officials of low rank. Skilled is a strong translation of a stronger Hebrew idea. Quick, ready, practice to the point of mastery. And the promise is about visibility. Real skill refuses to stay hidden, because excellence is rare in every generation, and rooms of power are always hunting for it. The person who does ordinary work at an extraordinary level eventually gets pulled upward, past the middle managers, into rooms their birth never booked for them. Luck has little to do with it. Competence has gravity. And now watch Solomon practice his own proverb, because this is where our story plants a seed that will not bloom for 5 more chapters. The historical record in the book of 1 Kings says Solomon was running enormous building projects, and during the labor he noticed one particular young man, a nobody from the tribe of Ephraim, the son of a widow. The record gives the reason for what happened next in almost the exact language of the proverb. Solomon saw that the young man was industrious, saw how well he did his work, and promoted him over the entire labor force of his tribe. Avido's son, standing before the king. Chapter 22, verse 29. Walking around in real time. The young man's name was Jeroboam. Remember that name. Write it on your hand, if you have to. The king spotted talent and rewarded it exactly as his own book advises, and lifted the boy into the heart of the kingdom's machinery. By every teaching in this chapter, it was the right call. Skill should rise. What Solomon could not see from that scaffold was where the rising would end. That industrious young man will walk back into this story near the end of our file, on a specific morning, in a town called Shechem, and when he does, he will take most of the kingdom with him. But that morning is still years away. Before we get there, the book wants to talk about something closer to home, money, and it is going to make you audit the man writing about it, because the man writing about it had 25 tons of gold arriving every single year. The wisest man on earth is about to teach personal finance from inside a golden palace. And the strangest part is this. One of the best teachings about wealth in his entire book will come from somebody else. A voice from nowhere, praying one of the most honest prayers ever recorded. There is a number sitting in the book of 1 Kings, chapter 10, and it reads like a line from an accountant's fever dream. The weight of gold that came to Solomon yearly was 666 talents. Do the conversion. That is roughly 25 tons of gold, every year, flowing into one man's treasury, on top of the trade revenue, the tribute, the taxes. The record says he made silver as common as stones in Jerusalem, which is the ancient way of saying the currency of ordinary people lost its meaning in his city. He drank from gold. He sat on an ivory throne overlaid with gold. 200 shields of hammered gold hung on the walls of his house. Decor, not defense. The ancient equivalent of wallpapering a den with $100 bills. That is the man teaching this chapter. The man writing about budgets never once checked a price. Keep your eye on that tension, because the book itself is about to feel it. And near the end of this chapter, a second voice is going to walk in from nowhere and say the thing the king could not. Teaching number 11 comes from chapter 21, and it sorts every financial life into one of 2 speeds. The plans of the diligent lead to profit, as surely as haste leads to poverty. Diligence and haste. The book treats those as the 2 engines a person can run on. And it is remarkable how well the split holds up 30 centuries later. One engine looks like this: a plan, a margin, a boring decade of small right moves. The other engine looks like this. A hot tip. A shortcut. This thing is going up, and you have to get in now. Every generation renames the second engine. Gold Rush. Landboom.com. The coin your cousin swore by. The costumes change, and the mathematics never does. Wealth built at the speed of patience tends to stay. Wealth chased at the speed of adrenaline tends to visit. And Chapter 15 adds, the ingredient haste always skips. Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. The book will not even let planning be a solo sport. The diligent move slowly, and they move accompanied, running the idea past eyes that have no reason to flatter it. Haste hates that step, because haste, on some level, already suspects what honest counsel would say. Teaching number 12 is my favorite piece of psychology in the money chapters, because it refuses to lie to you about how temptation tastes. Chapter 20. Food gained by fraud tastes sweet, but one ends up with a mouth full of gravel. Sweet. The book concedes the point up front. The padded invoice clears. The inflated resume gets the job. The corner cut holds. The number nobody checks stays unchecked. And the dinner bought with it tastes wonderful. Proverbs never pretends otherwise. And that honesty is exactly what makes it credible. Because if dishonest gain did not work at first, nobody would ever try it. The teaching is about the second course. Gravel in the mouth. The moment the meal turns. The audit. The discovery. Or subtler and worse. The years of chewing on the fear of discovery. Fraud is a loan against your own future. And the interest rate is hidden. And it compounds. Teaching number 13 might be the most quoted verse in this book that nobody realizes is a Bible verse. Chapter 22. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. Slave was not a word the ancient world used loosely. They knew exactly what it meant. A person whose time belongs to someone else. And the book's claim is that debt creates precisely that arrangement. Quietly, politely, with paperwork. Picture a very American scene. A man signs for a new truck. 84 months. 7 full years of payments. Nobody calls that slavery. It has cup holders. But walk the logic forward. For the next 7 years. A slice of every Monday morning he works belongs to the lender before it ever reaches his family. He cannot take the lower-paying job he would love. He cannot risk the small business. He cannot afford a month of freedom. Because the payment arrives, whether inspiration does or not. Nobody chained him. He financed the chain himself. And the book's point was never that borrowing is evil. The point is that borrowing is ownership of your future hours. And you should know exactly who owns next year before you sign it away for cup holders. Now the strange voice enters. And this is teaching number 14. Turn to chapter 30 of Proverbs, and the header changes. The sayings of Agur, son of Jakeh. Nobody knows who this man was. He has no kingdom, no throne room, no tonnage of gold, no other appearance anywhere in Scripture. He simply walks into the wisest book in the Bible, delivers one chapter, and vanishes. And buried in that chapter is a prayer, one of the only prayers in the whole book of Proverbs. And it may be the sanest financial sentence ever written. 2 things I ask of you. Lord, keep falsehood and lies far from me. Give me neither poverty nor riches, but give me only my daily bread. Otherwise, I may have too much and disown you and say, who is the Lord? Or I may become poor and steal, and so dishonor the name of my God. Watch what this man is doing. He is praying against both ditches. He looks at wealth and poverty and sees the same danger wearing 2 disguises, each one fully capable of bending a soul. One bends it through arrogance, the other through desperation. So he asks for the middle. Enough, daily bread and nothing past it. In a culture that has never once built a monument to the word enough, Agur's prayer lands like a foreign language. And here is what should raise the hair on your arms. Set this prayer beside the 25 tons. The nobody from nowhere prayed. Do not make me rich. It may cost me my grip on God. And the king who collected the very book his prayer sits in had riches beyond counting. And the record of that king's final years reads like Agur's prayer coming true in reverse. We are not there yet, but the file is starting to hum. Because there is one more form of wealth to audit. And Proverbs says this one outranks the vault. It cannot be deposited. It cannot be inherited. Right now, tonight, it is sitting around your dinner table, and it is either compounding or quietly bankrupting you. Do not answer this out loud. Just think it. Who are the 5 people you talked with most this past month? Real conversation. The people who get your unguarded voice. Family counts. Friends count. The group chat counts. Take a second and see the faces. Got them. Good. Proverbs says you just looked at your own future. Teaching number 15. Chapter 13. Walk with the wise and become wise. For a companion of fools suffers harm. The Hebrew underneath walk with is a traveling word, the kind used for a long road shared, a journey word, never a hallway, hello, and the promise attached to it is almost mechanical. Become wise. The verse does not say learn from the wise, or admire the wise, or follow wise waysounds. It describes something slower and far more powerful. Absorption. Spend 1,000 ordinary hours beside a person, and their normal starts becoming your normal. Their work habits recalibrate what you call hard work. Their marriage resets what you expect from yours. Their spending, their complaining, their courage, their cynicism, all of it seeps. Nobody in the car ride is teaching anything. And that is exactly why it works. You do not adopt your companion's conclusions. You adopt their assumptions. And assumptions are the part of you that makes decisions before you notice a decision is happening. That is why the second half of the verse says, suffers harm rather than becomes foolish. Walk long enough with fools, and you do not even have to become one. Their trajectory simply becomes your traffic. Their risks splash on you. Their ceiling quietly becomes yours. Harm by proximity. Membership optional. Before anyone hears this as advice to go shopping for shinier friends, the book installs a filter. And the filter is teaching, number 16. The question was never how impressive your circle is. The question is what your circle does when you are wrong. Chapter 27, verse 6. Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses, and a leaven versus ladder. The famous one. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Put those together and you get a sorting test for every person at your table. Because the people around you fall, roughly, into 4 kinds. There is the agreeer, pleasant, easy, allergic to friction, nodding at your worst ideas exactly as warmly as your best. There is the transactional one, fully present when you are useful, mysteriously busy when you are not. There is the loyal one, who genuinely loves you, who would take a punch for you, but who would rather take the punch than tell you a hard truth. And then there is the 4th kind, the iron, the one who values your future more than your comfort, the one who will say the sentence that costs them something. You are wrong about this. That email is a mistake. You have been off lately, and I am worried about you. The kisses in that verse are counterfeit currency, multiplying because they cost nothing to print, The wound is the real thing. Expensive, rare, and trustworthy, precisely because the person paid to give it to you. So run the audit. Those 5 faces from a minute ago. Is even one of them iron? If nobody on your list has ever risked your displeasure to tell you the truth, Proverbs would gently suggest you do not have an inner circle. You have an audience. And an audience, as we will see before this file closes, is the most expensive thing a person can own. Hold that thought, because a phone is buzzing. The 19-year-old from our opening night is still holding hers. You coming or not, everyone is going. And here is what this chapter wants her to see. And it has almost nothing to do with tonight. Tonight is one invitation. The real question is standing behind it. Wearing tonight as a costume. These voices, in this group chat, are they the wise I walk with? Or the companions in whose harm I am about to invest? Because whoever gets tonight tends to get the next 1,000 nights. The people we say yes to become the people we cannot easily say no to. And somewhere inside that 1,000 nights, their direction and hers will have quietly merged into one road. She is not choosing an evening. She is choosing a current. And every swimmer believes the current is not moving them, right up until they look at the shore. Teaching number 17 closes the table talk. And it is only one verse. And it lands soft after all this auditing. Chapter 17. A friend loves at all times. And a brother is born for a time of adversity. At all times. In the season you are fun, and in the season you are exhausting. When your star is up, and when your name gets awkward to mention. The book has spent this whole chapter teaching you to test your circle. And now, it flips the exam around, without warning. Born for adversity. Somebody in your life is going to hit a wall this year. A diagnosis. A divorce. A collapse. A season when they have nothing to offer anybody. The verse quietly asks which kind of face you are in their 5. Whether you are iron, or whether you are only kisses. So the table is set and audited. Words, work, money, companions, 17 teachings in. And you may have noticed the book keeps circling something. Some cliff edge it approaches and backs away from. Approaches and backs away. The stakes are about to stop being hypothetical. Because there is a road in chapter 7 of this book, the writer watched a young man walk down it with his own eyes, from a window, at dusk, and wrote down every step like a crime report. It is the most cinematic passage in all of Proverbs. And the most chilling thing about that road is the sign hanging over it. The sign does not say danger. The sign says, "This feels right." Dusk. In an ancient city, the light is going gold, then gray. Lamps are being lit inside doorways, and a writer is standing at his window, looking down through the lattice at the street below. He is watching people, and among the crowd, one figure catches his eye and will not let it go. A young man, crossing the street near a particular corner. Everything you are about to hear comes straight out of Proverbs chapter 7. Told in the first person. I saw among the simple. The writer says, I noticed among the young men a youth who had no sense. He was going down the street near her corner, walking along in the direction of her house. At twilight, as the day was fading, as the dark of night set in. Slow that sentence down, because the writer already did. Near her corner, in the direction of her house, this young man is not lost. There is no wrong turn anywhere in this story. The city has 100 streets, and his feet have chosen the one that passes her door, at the exact hour when the light is low enough to feel private. If you asked him, he would say he is just walking, just out for some air. And here is the first thing the window teaches us. The decisive step was not the last one at her threshold. It was the first one at the corner, the one that still felt innocent, the one he could still explain. Then she is there, out to meet him, dressed with intent. And the writer records her pitch like a stenographer. "Come, she says. I have my bed ready. Colored linens from Egypt. Perfume, myrrh and aloes and cinnamon. Let us drink deeply of love till morning. For my husband is not at home. He has gone on a long journey and will not return till full moon." Look at the architecture of that speech. Every objection he might raise, she dismantles before he can raise it. Worried about comfort, Egyptian linens. Worried about romance. This is love. She calls it love. Worried about consequences. The husband is far away. The timeline is safe. There is even a return date. Full moon. You can check the calendar. Temptation. The book is showing you. Almost never attacks. It reasons. It arrives with answers preloaded. And the answers always cover exactly the ground your conscience was about to walk. And the young man goes. All at once he followed her. The writer says, like an ox going to the slaughter, like a deer stepping into a noose, little knowing it will cost him his life. That is the scene. And teaching number 18 is the sign hanging over the entire road. Chapter 14. There is a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death. Appears to be right. That phrase is the whole ball game. The book is telling you that ruin does not advertise. Nobody's worst decision ever introduced itself as a worst decision. It came dressed as reasonable, as deserved, as harmless, as everyone does it, as just this once. The road to the slaughterhouse is paved, smooth, and lit warmly. And the signage is excellent. And every sign says this feels right, which means the feeling of rightness, by itself, is worthless as navigation. Wisdom in this book is the discipline of asking a different question. Where does this road actually end? Trace it. Follow it past tonight, past this quarter, past the fun part, all the way to its last address. The ox never did that math. That is why he is an ox. Teaching number 19 is the window scene itself, and its lesson is geography. The battle was lost at the corner, 3 blocks before the door. By the time the young man is standing in her street, hearing about cinnamon, his odds are gone. Every step down that road made the next step smaller, easier, more deniable. So the book's strategy is almost embarrassingly simple. And chapter 4 states it flat. Do not set foot on that path. Avoid it. Do not travel on it. Turn from it and go on your way. The wisdom is not heroic resistance at the threshold. It is unheroic rerouting at the corner. Back where turning away costs almost nothing and nobody would even call it a victory. And do not let the ancient costume fool you into thinking this is only about adultery. Her corner has 1,000 modern addresses. It is the browser at 1 in the morning. It is the third drink at the work event. It is the coworker you dress a little better for. The just coffee that requires a small lie at home. The investment guy whose numbers are too clean. The second phone. Everyone listening to this knows the location of their own corner. You know the street. You know the hour of day your feet start drifting. The book is not asking whether you can win the fight at the door. It is asking why you keep scheduling walks past the corner. Teaching number 20 takes us to a different door. One the ancient world knew as well as ours does. Chapter 23 asks a series of questions that sound like a family intervention. Who has woe? Who has sorrow? Who has strife? Who has complaints? Who has needless bruises? Who has bloodshot eyes? Then it answers its own riddle. Those who linger over wine. What follows is the oldest clinical description of addiction on record, and it still reads current. Your eyes will see strange sights, the writer says, and your mind will imagine confusing things. You will be like one sleeping on the high seas, lying on top of the rigging. They hit me. You will say, but I am not hurt. They beat me, but I do not feel it. Numbness, disorientation, the world tilting like a ship's deck, pain that cannot land. And then the last line, the one that stops every recovering person cold, because they have said it themselves. When will I wake up, so I can find another drink? That sentence was written nearly 3,000 years before anyone coined the word addiction, and it captures the entire machine in 9 words. The suffering does not end the wanting. The suffering feeds the wanting. The thing that caused the pain gets rehired as the painkiller. And the loop closes. And the ox is back on the road. Except now the road is a circle. Which brings us to teaching number 21. And it is the master key to this chapter. Maybe to this whole book. Because you could hear all of this and conclude that wisdom means guarding your streets, guarding your glass, guarding your browser. The book goes one layer deeper. Chapter 4, verse 23. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Above all else. That is the highest priority label Proverbs ever uses. And the logic is plumbing. The heart, in this book, is the wellspring, the source point where wants are formed before they ever become plans. Every road in this chapter, her corner, the bottle, the way that appears right. Every one of them was walked by feet, but chosen by a heart, hours or years earlier, in private, unwatched. By the time a temptation is visible on the street, it is already won or lost inside. So the real security system is not at the door, and it is not at the corner. It is at the well. Watch what you let down into it, what you feed your imagination, what you rehearse, what you envy, what you linger on. Everything you do flows from there, and water only runs downhill. The young man at the window guarded nothing, and the writer watched the door close behind him and wrote it down, so that 30 centuries of readers could stand at that lattice and feel the chill. But here is the uncomfortable turn. Roads and corners and open shame. Those are the visible failures. The book now wants to talk about the invisible kind. The kind you can carry in a bag, in good standing, with a clean reputation. For years, archaeologists have actually dug it up. It fits in the palm of your hand. And the man who wrote a whole book warning about it ended up proving his own chapter. In the display cases of several museums, recovered from the buried layers of ancient Israelite cities, there is a category of artifact that looks like nothing at all. Small, polished stones, dome-shaped, sized for a palm. They are scale weights. In a world before printed money, this is how value moved. You put the silver on one pan, the stone on the other, and the stone told the truth about what things weighed. Except that some of these excavated stones tell a different story. Archaeologists keep finding weights marked with the same denomination that do not weigh the same amount, and merchants' kits with 2 sets in one bag, a heavier set for when the merchant was buying, a lighter set for when he was selling. Same bag, same hand. 2 versions of the truth, selected by whichever direction the prophet ran. Fraud has a fossil record. You can stand in front of it behind glass, and Proverbs points its finger directly at that bag. Teaching number 22. Chapter 11. The Lord detests dishonest scales, but accurate weights find favor with him. Detests. The book saves that word for a short list of things, and a rig's scale makes the list, which should tell you something about how God ranks quiet cheating next to loud sinning. But watch what the crooked stone does to its owner, because that is the part the merchant never audits. Every transaction, his hand goes into that bag and chooses which truth to tell today. Choose. Weigh. Pocket the difference. Choose. Weigh. Pocket. Each individual use feels like a transaction. Collectively, they are a training program. The man is teaching himself, dozens of times a day. That truth is adjustable. That reality is whatever the customer cannot verify. The customers lose pennies. The merchant loses the ability to weigh anything honestly, including himself. That is the book's dark joke about dishonesty. The scale you rig is ultimately the one you stand on. Somewhere in a modern office tower, a woman is still sitting in front of a spreadsheet. Row 40. You remember her. The number is still wrong, and she is still the only one who knows. And it is late, and rationalization has started making its case. It is not even that big a discrepancy. It probably rolls off next quarter anyway. Flagging it now just makes the whole team look bad. Hear what is actually happening in that cubicle. Her hand is in the bag, feeling for the lighter stone. And this chapter's claim is that the decision she makes about row 40 will weigh more than the number itself ever did. She is not just editing a spreadsheet. She is calibrating her own scale. And tomorrow's hand reaches into whatever bag today's hand packed. Teaching number 23. Chapter 22. A good name is more desirable than great riches. To be esteemed is better than silver or gold. And its quiet partner. Chapter 10. Whoever walks in integrity walks securely. But whoever takes crooked paths will be found out. Notice the word securely, because the book is describing something wonderfully practical, almost logistical. The person who tells one version of events owns the lightest luggage in the world. Nothing to remember, nothing to reconcile. Ask them the same question twice, a year apart, and the answers match, effortlessly, because both answers are just descriptions of what happened. Now watch the crooked traveler. He must remember which story went to which person. He must track which numbers were shown to which audience. Keep the versions from meeting each other at parties. Patch each new gap with fresh material that itself must be remembered. He has become, full-time and unpaid, the archivist of his own fabrications. That is why his walk is never secure. Security is not the absence of enemies. It is the absence of contradictions. And integrity is simply the decision to live one life instead of managing several. Which brings the file back to the palace. It is time to check on the author. And the news is not good. Teaching number 24. Chapter 16. 6 words that have outlived every empire that ignored them. Pride goes before destruction. A haughty spirit before a fall. Solomon wrote that. Now watch the record of his later years. In 1 Kings, chapter 11, and watch it with those 6 words playing underneath. The law of Israel had given kings 3 specific warnings. Do not multiply horses from Egypt. Do not multiply wives. Do not multiply silver and gold. Each one, in its own way, teaches a king that he is above the rules that made him. Solomon multiplied all 3. 12,000 horses, many from Egypt, 700 wives. Princesses of the very nations he had been warned would turn his heart. And turn it they did. Gold, past the point of counting. The record says that on the hill, directly facing the temple he had built for God, Solomon built altars to the gods of his foreign wives, face to face, on opposite hills. The greatest thing he ever made and the quiet betrayal of it. He could see both from his window. Here, is what makes this the most instructive collapse in the Old Testament. It was slow, and it was smart. Solomon never announced a rebellion. There was no dramatic morning where he renounced wisdom. There was only a long sequence of exceptions, each one reasonable at the time. The horses were national security. The marriages were diplomacy. Every single one sealed an alliance. The gold was just success being successful. Pride at this altitude does not strut or boast. It simply concludes, quietly, over years, that the warnings are for other men. The rules describe average cases. And I am not an average case. I wrote the book on this, which is precisely the moment chapter 16 was written about. Though its own author could no longer hear it. Pride goes before destruction, and the going can take decades. And the man in motion is always the last to feel himself moving. The proverb was true the whole time. He proved it the expensive way. The writer became the footnote. Teaching number 25 closes the chapter with a picture every ancient listener would have felt in their stomach. Chapter 25. Like a city whose walls are broken through is a person who lacks self-control. You have to know what walls meant to hear this right. In Solomon's world, the wall was the city. It was the reason your children slept at night. The line between civilization and everything in the dark beyond it. A city with broken walls was not a weaker city. It was a former city. Plunder, waiting for a schedule. And everyone inside knew it. Which is why breached walls emptied towns faster than armies did. Now hang the metaphor where the book hangs it. On a person. Self-control is not one virtue on the list. It is the wall around all the other virtues. The thing that keeps your talent, your reputation, your relationships, your good name, safely inside. And a person who cannot govern their own impulses, their temper, their appetites, their spending, their late-night browsing, is not a flawed city. They are an open one. It does not matter how much treasure is stacked inside. It does not matter that the breach is only in one section. Only after 10 at night. Only around certain people. A wall with one gap is not 90% of a wall. It is an invitation with excellent masonry on either side of it. Every teaching in this file so far, all 25 of them, has been a stone in that wall. And the reason the book has been building so carefully is that a test is coming, the biggest one it knows. Because there is one force on earth that finds every gap in a person's wall. Guaranteed. On a deadline. It is called power. And in the next chapter, power is going to land, with its full weight, on the shoulders of a young man standing in front of a crowd in a town called Shechem. His father assembled the wisest book on earth, and on the one morning it mattered. He could not hear a word of it. The year is around 930 BC, and Israel is holding its breath. Solomon is dead, 40 years on the throne. The Golden Age, the temple, the fleets, the visiting queens, all of it now sealed in a tomb. And the kingdom has traveled north to a town called Shechem to crown his son. His name is Rehoboam. He is 41 years old, and he has spent every one of those years inside the palace, which is another way of saying he has rarely, if ever, heard the word no spoken to his face, and feel who this man is before the crowd speaks. When the book of Proverbs says, "My son, listen to your father's instruction," this is that son, the literal one. He grew up in the royal house where those sayings were first collected. The son, the whole book keeps calling my son. The wisest sentences his civilization ever gathered about power, about listening, about flattery, about the tongue, were the air of his childhood home. If wisdom could be inherited like furniture, This man would be the wisest king who ever lived. The crowd at Shechem has come with a request, and behind the request stands a familiar face. Jeroboam is back, the industrious young man from our 4th chapter. The widow's son Solomon, promoted for the quality of his work. The name I told you to write on your hand. He had risen high, then fled to Egypt when things turned dangerous. And now, with the old king dead, the northern tribes have called him home to be their spokesman. Skill rose. Exactly as the proverb promised, it is now standing across from the throne, holding the crowd. And the request itself is astonishingly mild. Your father put a heavy yoke on us. The people say, heavy labor, heavy taxes, the human cost of all that gold. Lighten it, and we will serve you. That is the whole demand. Ease up, and we are yours. They are offering loyalty and naming its price. And the price is mercy. Rehoboam says, give me 3 days. And what happens inside those 3 days is the final exam for every chapter of this file. 4 teachings, tested in real time, on the record. The first thing he does is right. He calls in the elders, the gray-haired men who stood beside his father for decades, who watched the kingdom get built, decision by decision. Their counsel survives, and it is one of the great sentences in the Old Testament. If today you will be a servant to these people and serve them, they will be your servants forever. Sit inside that advice for a second, because it inverts everything a throne room teaches. Serve them first. Spend the power on their relief. And the power holds. Because a king who carries burdens is a king people fight to keep. These old men had watched Solomon tax the nation to its breaking point, and they are handing his son the one word that repairs it. Serve. Teaching number 26. From chapter 16 and chapter 29 of Proverbs, is standing in the room while they speak. Kings take pleasure in honest lips, and a ruler who listens to lies. All his officials become wicked. Watch that second half, because it is about to happen on camera. The book claims a leader's ear sets the market for the whole organization. Reward truth, and truth keeps walking toward you. Reward flattery, and the honest voices go quiet or go home. And what remains is a court of mirrors. Rehoboam hears the elders out. The record says he rejected their advice. He turns instead to the young men who grew up with him in the palace, friends whose entire standing depends on his mood. And a court of mirrors says what mirrors always say. It repeats the king's own reflection back to him. Enlarged. Show them strength. They tell him, say this to the people. My little finger is thicker than my father's waist. My father laid on you a heavy yoke. I will make it heavier. My father scourged you with whips. I will scourge you with scorpions. 3 days pass. The crowd gathers. Jeroboam stands at the front. And Rehoboam, son of the king, whose collection says a soft answer, turns away wrath, stands up before a wounded nation and delivers the whips and scorpions speech. Word for word. Freeze the frame, because I want to count the wreckage with you. Teaching by teaching, everything this file has built, he violates in a single answer. He answered before truly hearing. Chapter 3 of this file. Folly and shame. The grievance was real. Decades of documented weight. And he responded to all of it with a threat. He surrounded himself with kisses instead of iron. Chapter 6. The audit of the table. He had elders, and he had mirrors. And he chose the mirrors. And the mirrors told him he was tall. His words were a sword, drawn at the exact moment the wound needed a physician. Chapter 2. And he treated power as a possession to defend instead of a weight to carry. Which brings us to teaching number 27. Chapter 16 and chapter 29. A throne is established through righteousness. A king who judges the poor with fairness. His throne will be secure forever. Hear the engineering in that verse. Justice is the load-bearing structure under the chair. The crowd at Shechem was handing Rehoboam the exact material the proverb specifies. An act of fairness toward the burdened. And offering, in exchange, the exact outcome the proverb promises. A secure throne. Forever. Their word. He was one sentence away from the deal his father's book had already negotiated for him. He shows Scorpion. And the nation answered. The record preserves their cry. And it moves like a door slamming. What share do we have in David? To your tents, Israel. 10 tribes turned and walked away. That day, that morning, they crowned Jeroboam, the industrious widow's son, king of the north, the united kingdom of David and Solomon. 2 generations of blood and genius in the building, tore in half in the time it takes to give one speech, and in all of recorded history. It never came back together. One answer. The kingdom was lost in one answer. No war. No famine. No invasion. A sentence. Spoken by a man who owned the book that warned him about the sentence. Could a soft answer have saved it? It might have held the kingdom together that morning, and given mercy a chance to do what mercy does. Though the record itself hints the tear ran deeper than one man's tongue, back into years of yokes and quiet anger. The fact remains that the last hand on the cloth was his, and he pulled. There are 2 voices left in Proverbs, and both belong in this scene, because both are the voices Rehoboam never heard. The final chapter of the book is signed by King Lemuel, and it opens with a line that stings here. The sayings of King Lemuel, an inspired utterance his mother taught him. A king, ruling well, on the strength of what his mother drilled into him. Set that beside Rehoboam, who had the wisest father alive and walked away with nothing. Wisdom is received, never inherited. It transfers through listening, or it does not transfer at all. And what did Lemuel's mother teach him? Teaching number 28. Chapter 31. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. For the rights of all who are destitute. Defend the rights of the poor and needy. A mother. Defining the job of a king. And the definition is a direction. Power exists to face downward, toward the people who cannot repay it and cannot threaten it. The crowd at Shechem was that assignment. Standing in the open air. Asking, Rehoboam faced his power upward instead, toward his own reflection. Teaching number 29 is her other lesson. It is not for kings. Lemuel. It is not for kings to drink wine, lest they drink and forget what has been decreed, and deprive all the oppressed of their rights. The Queen Mother is drawing a hard boundary, and hear how strange it is. The king, the one man who can afford anything, is the one man who must refuse. An ordinary person can afford a clouded evening. A king cannot, because his judgment is public property, and the bill for every royal indulgence lands somewhere below the throne. Leadership, in her definition, is voluntary narrowing. The higher the chair, the shorter the menu. Now come back to the glass tower, because this chapter was never really about 930 BC. The man from our opening night is still standing outside his conference room, the room where nobody argues anymore. And I hope you can see the 2 rooms superimposed now, because they are the same room. Every company, every church, every family with one strong voice at the head of the table is running the Shechem experiment daily. The elders and the mirrors are both always available. The heavy yoke request always comes. Some honest person asking for a burden to be acknowledged. And the leader always chooses which voices eat at his table. Shechem is not ancient history. Shechem is a Tuesday. Shechem is a staff meeting. Shechem is a dinner table where a teenager just said something true, and everyone is watching what dad does with it. 10 tribes are always standing in the doorway, deciding. The kingdom split, and the record moves on, and you might assume the book that failed, its own royal family would have been quietly buried with it. It nearly was. What saved it is one of the strangest single verses in the Bible. A line of copyright information that opens a window 250 years wide. Because centuries after the disaster at Shechem, in a kingdom living under the long shadow of an empire, a group of men sat down at their writing tables, took out the collected sayings of the man whose family lost everything, and started making copies. And the question this whole file has been building toward is one word long. Why? Jerusalem. Roughly 250 years later, the northern kingdom, Jeroboam's kingdom, is gone. Assyria, the superpower of the age, rolled over it, deported its people, and wiped its name off the political map. The south survives in Assyria's long shadow, a small kingdom holding its breath. The king in Jerusalem now is a reformer named Hezekiah, and somewhere in his city there is a lamplit room, ink pots, oil lamps, scrolls, and a team of scribes engaged in a project the Bible itself footnotes. Proverbs, chapter 25, verse 1. So these are more Proverbs of Solomon, compiled by the men of Hezekiah, king of Judah. That is an editorial credit, sitting in the middle of Scripture. And I find it one of the most moving verses in the book. Because think about what those men knew. Every scribe at every table knew how Solomon ended. The foreign altars on the hill facing the temple. The kingdom split by his son's arrogance. The north, wiped away within living memory. The author's biography was, by every worldly measure, an argument against his own book, and they copied it anyway, letter by letter, scroll by scroll. They preserved the wisdom of a man whose life fell short of it. Why? Because those scribes understood the thing this whole file has been circling. Solomon's collapse never once contradicted his Proverbs. It confirmed them. Pride goes before destruction, and his pride went before his destruction, on schedule. As written, the book said, "Walk with the wise." And he filled his palace with 700 royal marriages and reaped exactly the harvest. Chapter 13 predicted. His life is the ledger that proves the math. A map does not become false because the map maker drove off the road. If anything, the wreck at the bottom of the ravine, sitting precisely where the map said the ravine would be, is the strongest endorsement the map will ever receive. The scribes copied on. Their copies became our copies, and that is the only reason you and I can open this book tonight. Which brings us to teaching number 30. And after 9 chapters of warnings, hear how much mercy is in it. Chapter 24. Though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again 7 times. The book puts a number on it, and the number is not 0. Understand what that means for the definition running through this entire file. The righteous person in Proverbs is a faller. He hits the ground, repeatedly, 7 being the Hebrew way of saying completely, as many times as it takes. What separates him is a single repeated motion. He gets up. Wisdom, it turns out, was never the art of not falling. It is the direction you face while getting off the floor. And if tonight you have been counting your own wreckage against these 30 teachings, the email you did send, the corner you did walk past, the mirrors you did hire, then this verse was placed here for you. The floor is not your address. Rising is a decision, and it is available at any count. And teaching number 31, the last one, tells you what all that rising slowly builds. Chapter 4. The path of the righteous is like the morning sun, shining ever brighter till the full light of day. I love that the book closes its argument with a sunrise, because a sunrise is the one spectacular thing on earth that nobody ever catches moving. Stare at it and you see nothing happen. Look away. Look back. And the world is brighter. That is how a wise life works. And it is why nobody applauds it in real time. Each guarded sentence, each honest number, each corner refused, each morning of unwatched work is invisible on the day it happens. The light only shows in the accumulation. Lives, like sunrises, are noticed at noon. So, 4 people are still waiting where we left them. 4 seconds on the clock. Let me tell you how it went. The man with the email put the phone face down and went to bed angry, which is not a miracle, just a decision. In the morning, he wrote 4 sentences instead of 40, kept the true ones, cut the sharp ones, and sent it. The reply came back before lunch, and it began with the words, "You're right, and thank you for how you said this." The woman with the spreadsheet walked into her manager's office at 9 the next morning and said, "Row 40 is wrong, and the error is mine." What followed was every bit as uncomfortable as she feared. The meeting ran long. Her name was attached to the miss, and when review season came around that quarter, it showed. She paid full price. Here is what she got for it. She walked out of that office carrying nothing. No second version of events to maintain. No lighter stone hidden in the bag. No flinch when the auditors came through in the spring. The company docked her a quarter. The truth handed her back every night of sleep for the rest of the year. And she will tell you she got the better end of the trade. The 19-year-old typed, "Not tonight," and hit send, and learned something worth the whole evening. 2 people in the chat replied with a laughing emoji. 1 person wrote back privately, "You okay? Everything good." She had run the audit without knowing it. Now she knew who at her table was iron. And the man at the conference room door walked in, sat down, and did the thing he had not done in 6 years. He said, "Before we start, I think I called last quarter wrong, and I want to know what I am missing. Who sees it differently?" The room went silent for 5 full seconds, the longest 5 seconds of his career. Then a junior analyst, the one with the least to lose or the most courage, cleared her throat and said, "Actually," and the room, for the first time in years, began to talk. 4 small turns, no headlines in any of them. Morning sun, moving the way it moves. One last thing before the lamps go out, and it is about a number that has been hiding in plain sight since the title of this file. The book of Proverbs has exactly 31 chapters. The longest month on the calendar has exactly 31 days. Generations of readers have taken that as an invitation. 1 chapter each morning, first of the month to the last, then back to the beginning, month after month, for life. And I think those readers understood the book better than most commentaries do, because they grasped what it actually is. This was never a book you finish. It is a book you take, the way you take bread, the way the ant takes the summer, daily, on schedule, in small amounts, forever. Nobody memorizes wisdom into their life. You repeat it in, one morning at a time, until the reflexes change. So no, you will not remember all 31 teachings from tonight. You were never supposed to. They were not designed for your memory. They were designed for your 4 seconds. That narrow moment before the send button, before the reply, before the corner, before the meeting, when a life quietly picks its direction and calls it nothing. 31 teachings. 31 days. The month starts tomorrow.